I'm pressing record. It appears that we're recording, and the good Lord willing, this thing's going to actually work. So, as we move on, our purpose today is really to talk about managed accounts made easy, okay? So what is the Managed Account Solution Suite? When you look at it from a first blush, it looks a little daunting, a little overwhelming. There's a lot of moving parts to it. Contrary to popular belief, it is not Envestnet. You can see Envestnet is one piece of a very intricately designed machine that we call the TFS Managed Account Solution Suite. It is a collaborative, sophisticated, open architecture tool that we put together that includes the efforts and the staff of TFS Securities and TFS Advisory, you as the advisor, Pershing, Envestnet, Buy-Hold Plus, outside fund strategists and money managers, and portfolio management consultants, PMC, our outsourced CIO and research arm. So again, it's not anything that is a one-dimensional by any stretch. And again, I'd like to see us to be open-minded and change, overwhelming and complicated with, robust and sophisticated, scalable and sustainable, because it really is the entire industry can't be wrong. They've certainly have the market cornered on building managed account platforms for the independent broker-dealer and RIA business. So we're talking today about managed accounts made easy. I'm gonna bounce through a couple of slides, and maybe just to kick us off. There's a teeny tiny bit of profanity here. Wasn't intentional, but it's one of my favorites.
You have to worry about this flight that's winning. They can play. They'll be in the finals against us. Oh, shit, this is too easy. No, that shit is too easy. Too easy. Shit is too easy. What?
Yeah, wow. All right. Well, you got the most important part. You got to hear it. I can see it. This is clearly a matter of overwhelming with technology. But it really is too easy. Couple of things just from a best practice review, and I don't want to, beat a dead horse. I've got till 10 o'clock, and I'm going to try to squeeze as much in as I can. I probably got more material than I need, so I'm going to bounce around a little bit. First and foremost, looking around, I don't want to, oversell a point, but how many people have done managed account business? How many people have done it outside with a third party? Okay. How many people have done it through the TFS Managed Account Solution Suite? So we got a few, little crossover. I don't think this really applies, but I want to just give you a little injection of preventative medicine here at this point. One of the aspects of our program is we have what's called an advisor as portfolio manager tool. Okay, that's great if you want to be an asset manager, if you want to be a portfolio manager, and we can talk about that later on if need be, if we have time. But again, what we've really put together is a platform that is very robust for that, but what we're really trying to target is the asset gatherer. Okay, I'm not a portfolio manager. I focus my attention on my client situation, and we provided the tools to do the due diligence to provide you with outstanding third-party money managers to manage your client portfolios, and that's what we really want to draw you to. Resist the temptation to get smart, leave your ego at the door, and do what the third parties have done well, what the professional money managers have done well for hundreds and hundreds of years. From a client perspective, the most important thing that we do is we focus on the client's goals and investment objective, the time horizon, and the account size. And a couple things that I want to just make very, very clear. This has never been about all fee instead of commission. Clearly we're going to talk about best practices, and best practices are fees don't work every single time. It doesn't make sense. Commissions are going to make sense in certain smaller cases. And when you try to force a managed account and a robust platform like this where there's costs involved, it sometimes just doesn't really make sense. So fees are not always better than commissions. Okay, the smaller accounts are challenging because of the hard minimum fees. One of the things in your kits here, which I'm going to draw your attention to, and we're going to be referring to this throughout, there is a kind of a solution matrix that I want to draw your attention to. It's very, very important that you try to stick with this. So when you look at the top range, again, these are guidelines. You're going to see there's crossover. So you're going to see 0 to 25,000. Says Pershing brokerage account or mutual fund, Class A or Class C share. Do we have alternatives for managed account less than $10,000? Yes, because we're a flexible open architecture platform, and you may have a situation where you have a client with $8 million, and they're going to be really pissed if you can't give them a $4,000 managed account for their son's 529. Okay, so it's there. Would it be my ideal circumstance? Absolutely not. Okay, so under 25,000, it's really not a fee-based account. And if you're going to do it, it's going to be an accommodation that your client's probably going to pay more than they should, or you're going to probably make less than you should. Anybody disagree? Want to debate? Don't think so. Okay. 25 to 50. Okay. Again, Pershing brokerage account, mutual fund, Class A or Class C shares. This is where I kind of see the crossover point. You sell somebody a $50,000 commission-based product. Do you do them a bad job? Absolutely not. Really depends on the situation, depends on the client, and you provide full disclosure and full transparency. And then we kind of ease into the different choices, which I'm not going to blow you away with, but we have the TFS Perspectives Advisors Portfolio Manager. We have the InvestNet Foundation portfolios, and we have the Fund Strategist portfolios, single strategy solutions, including the TFS Buy Hold Plus scenarios. Once we get to the 100,000, 50,000 and 250 is really where we see the Fund Strategist as the wheelhouse there. From 100 and above is really where we start getting into the unified managed account, which allows us to have multiple strategies, more than one, including separately managed accounts. And as we get to super big accounts that are probably above all of our day-to-day pay grade, we have an option through InvestNet PMC to go to their, what do they call it, the custom case consulting team to get professional assistance from the guys that were like doing our WebExes the last couple of weeks, those portfolio strategists, to help us to build portfolios with managers that we don't know. Eric and I have used them on a couple of cases with great success. They open doors that we wouldn't have been looking behind to really provide a very, very professional and very reasonably priced alternative to the clients. So take some time to look at that solution matrix. Again, it's a guideline, but I think as you take the time to look through it, it's going to make a lot of sense to you. Okay. What I've seen in the last year of doing this, and I've certainly seen it for many years before this, okay, sadly, registered reps to a different extent, but to a percentage in each of us are motivated by compensation. Okay, so we sell to a degree for commission. The other thing that we sell, unfortunately, some more than others, some less than others, is recent performance. Okay, recent performance means pretty much nothing, and we're going to illustrate that a little bit later on in glaring detail. More often than not, I've seen, especially when people have jumped into the managed account business, they've jumped in based upon performance, what somebody else told them to do, and they didn't really even know what they were buying. Okay? Anybody familiar with the company Hanlon Investments? Okay? So if you know Hanlon, okay? Can anybody tell me what their calling card is, what they do best? as a manager? Fixed income? Okay. Yeah, they're also a tactical manager. Anybody want to stand up in front of the crowd and tell me what a tactical money manager does? I'm going to say probably not, just to save everybody embarrassment. I'm not going to call anybody up here, okay? But what we need to do is we need to understand the difference between a traditional or strategic asset allocation, where somebody's, putting together that traditional asset allocation, spreading risk over a lot of asset classes, to a tactical manager who may be overweighting or underweighting positions, getting in or out. They could be momentum based, they could be timing based. Dynamic asset allocators are using tactical and traditional overlays. So if you don't understand that at selling a product, that's no different than selling a bond fund when you should be selling a stock fund, or selling a value fund instead of a growth fund. Since we've made it simple to provide these products to you, it's very, very important that you understand what the managers do, because the problem was, and Hanlon has a great track record. Hanlon in 2008 essentially predicted the market collapse. They've got videos on CNBC, Sean Hanlon out there, and market's going to go down, and he was right. Now, again, what you don't see is sometimes when did they get back into the market, which is always the challenging part of it. But everybody's complaint was, oh, man, their performance is terrible. Well, it's terrible because they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. There's a style that they're supposed to follow. Is a traditional asset allocation going to beat the S&P in an up market? Couldn't possibly, okay? Because we're watering down the good with these other asset classes that may be out of favor, because we're not looking to time which one is going to be good at each given time. So it's a risk management technique that's designed to give us a smoother ride. But if we don't understand that, we don't explain it to our clients, we're going to be in for a rude awakening. So the most important thing that you can focus your attention on, and why you don't want to become a manager per se, is understand what different managers do and understand the styles and how they're supposed to react, so that you're not out there chasing performance and setting bad expectation. Questions on that? On a more granular level, okay, again, not asking you to become an economist, okay, but, we've done some training in the last couple of months. We talk about active versus passive. All you need to do is to pick up some mediocre financial press now, and everybody's talking about, active investing is dead. It's all about passive. And believe me, if your objective is to get 100% high octane representation in a particular market segment of the economy or index, and looking to do that with the lowest cost, that's what you want, okay? But what we've demonstrated in some of our recent WebExes is that there are certain asset classes that historically it's tough for managers to beat that index. So why bother? And then there's certain asset classes, maybe it's emerging markets, maybe it's overseas, where managers have proven to be able to add significant value, significant alpha to the portfolios, where it's worth paying for the management fee. So again, understanding the difference between active and passive, not just looking at the bottom line, and being able to explain to your client, and in all likelihood, realizing that one is not better than the other. They're best when they're used to complement each other. Okay? And then if you're going to pick a manager or a strategist, understand what it is that they're doing. That's why I always caution everybody before they dive into being their own manager, setting up their own portfolios. Put yourself in a position where you have some sort of definable, relatable pitch that says, hey, this is how I manage money. Okay? Anybody sell a Templeton Growth Fund? Okay? Anybody know what the Templeton Growth Fund does? Okay? It's a global value, broad-based, multi-cap fund. Okay? That's important to know that. Okay, is it a tax-free muni fund? No, so don't expect that. Okay, but if you don't have definable parameters, think twice about being a manager, and understand these other different management styles and what they do and how that may shape portfolios. Again, high level cocktail party, be able to discuss it intelligently, not necessarily write a book on it. Make sense? The other thing is to understanding the difference between diversification and asset allocation. I explain asset allocation to clients very simply. Diversification, okay, is mixing up a lot of different stuff. Okay, asset allocation is mixing it up with organization. Okay, there's a rhyme or reason to it. Okay, so we want to diversify through asset allocation, but if I have a manager or a strategist or a fund that's already providing me a level of diversification, do I want to buy XYZ growth fund and ABC growth fund? When clients can look at it and say, gee, this one's done better than that one. So now automatically you're going to be wrong half the time. Okay, if you're going to diversify, use asset allocation to diversify among different asset classes and using periodic conditional rebalancing, but also diversify between management styles. So if I'm going to have more than one manager or strategist, let me have a traditional asset allocator and a tactical asset allocator. Maybe I'm going to have some active and some passive. Okay? Don't diversify between managers of the same style or asset class. Just a quick commercial on the value of the portfolio manager or strategist. Again, I think it's one of the most common misunderstandings that I've been able to help some of our advisors to finally see the light on after unfortunately going down that dark path of trying to manage their own portfolios, is when you look at the value of the portfolio manager, they're doing asset allocation, portfolio design, investment selection, portfolio structure and management, trading, rebalancing, risk management, tax management, ongoing due diligence, portfolio management, performance attribution, all these things. And it's not just, well, I can pick a good fund, or I fancy myself as being pretty good at the stock market, or what about the administrative aspects of it? Okay. The strategist at TFS, and this is where initially it might be a little overwhelming. Okay, but again, it's not overwhelming. It's robust and complex, because I'd rather know that you have the choice. I'd rather that you know that you have the choice of the best in breed out there without restriction, and our due diligence process and your research will bring you to the best. There's 881 portfolios, and by strategists, we're talking about mutual fund and exchange traded fund strategists, not necessarily the separately managed account business at this point. That's a little bit more advanced, and we'll talk about that just very briefly today. Those 881 portfolios are across 131 strategists, 75 of them with multiple portfolios, but only 8 of them have over $100 million on the platform at this point. So there's a lot of small players out there. So for simplicity's sake, number one is we want to maybe focus, keep our life simple, based upon brand recognition, cost, if cost is a factor, what type of marketing support they're going to provide you, what type of portfolio management support you're going to get. So you look at some of those names: Russell, Morningstar, Vanguard, Wilshire, BlackRock, TFS Buy Hold Plus, which quite frankly has posted great results stacked up against these big names before and after fees. One of the few out there whose actual performance with a 12-year track record exceeds its blended benchmark after fees. JP Morgan, Portfolio Management Consultants, American Funds, and Franklin Templeton. On one hand, some of us are comfortable with a Franklin Templeton name. We've worked with them for 30 years. Some of us have worked with American Funds. BlackRock sells itself. Vanguard, inexpensive, great reputation, sells itself. Morningstar, carries a lot of weight with people. Okay, not suggesting that you do the wrong thing for the wrong reasons, but why go down a dark path when, this is where the bulk of your clients want to be to begin with. Okay? There's some other ones that you may not know that you're going to find that you may see enter into your portfolios from time to time. And some of these are really going to be more on the separately managed account side. Companies like Double Line on the fixed income side, Jeffrey Gunlock, DFA, Clearbridge, Montage and Caldwell, Dorsey, Wright, Braver, Denver, Clark, very, very solid choices. So we're going to go into a live demo, and we're going to just show you how simply this can all be done. And we're going to bang it out in pretty fast and show you what I consider to be 3 different ways to do it. 80% of the cases that we're going to do are going to be $0 to $250,000. Okay? The single strategy solution, like we talked about in the matrix, makes the most sense. We don't need to diversify between managers in that situation. So I'm going to give you the simple training wheels method through the digital portfolio consultant. When we do that, pay attention and get familiar. Take the notes as we go through it on where some of those names are and who some of those portfolio managers are, because I'm going to show you how I do it and my shortcut to try to do it without making it more complicated than it needs to be. Next, probably even simpler without the training wheels, is going through the full menu of fund strategist portfolios and picking one from that list that you put together. And then in the other 20% of the cases, roughly over 150, maybe over 250,000, where we're going to be doing a multiple strategy solution. Multiple strategies is where the unified managed account comes in. So remember, when you're opening up an account, one is fund strategist, more than one is unified managed account. Forget everything else. That's the most important thing. Before we dive into that, how about any questions? I'm going to start with something called a digital portfolio consultant. You see a fully compliant 1-minute proposal. We can get it to a point where we're doing proposals, if not in under a minute, certainly under 5 minutes. Okay? It can be selected from the main menu or as a proposal option. So if I want to use the digital portfolio consultant as a simplified research tool, it's out there and I'll show you. If not, I can jump right into it as I'm building a proposal and go from there. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out of here. I should already be signed into the platform. And there we go. Any questions before I go? Because I'm going to go through this quickly, but not so fast. Please feel free to stop me. Okay? Because I want to demonstrate how easy it actually can be. So I'm on my home screen. Anytime you get lost, this little house up here is home. Go home. Scroll down. Create new proposal. You're gonna see your client. The most important thing you want to do is let's just get right to it. We don't need to be any more complicated than this. So I'm going to create a proposal from scratch, and I'm going to call this Preferred Partners. Any client that I have in the system already is going to show up in there, okay? Or I can add a new client, as you just saw above. And I have a client in here, test client. I'm going to use that to save a little bit of time. So this is the proposal building. There's 7 or 8 steps to it that are quite simple. Follow the bouncing ball, follow the navigation. Don't jump ahead, but you can navigate either side to side, okay, or up and down. It's like wax on, wax off, or paint the fence, okay? Anybody get Karate Kid? Never. Guys, wake up, Jesus. So, my proposal title, now if I want to change this proposal, I'm going to call it Mr. and Mrs. P. Partners. And let's say for the sake of simplicity, this is our simple account, 150 grand. Why a single strategy makes sense is because with 150 grand, what would you have done before? How many funds would you have gotten? This is going to be a multi asset class solution to begin with, so we don't need to unnecessarily diversify. If I wanted to, which I can come back and show you if and when we have time or do it offline. If I have cash, I'm showing this as 150,000 of cash. If I have an account that they're coming from, let's say they've got a brokerage account or a couple of mutual funds or something like that, I can click on this specify current asset detail, and I can put in here the various holdings that they have by just putting in the symbol and the shares to whatever extent that portfolio exists. I just threw a couple things in there, and you can see that just by putting those two symbols in there, it populated it. It takes down the current price per share and multiplies it by the quantity, and boom, now what that allows me to do is to have a side-by-side proposal. Everybody follow me? Am I going too fast? Yes.
Sometimes there are a lot of
holdings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. And is there a way to import it?
You can, and I've tried it, but it's considering all I need to do is type in symbol, shares, symbol, shares, symbol, shares. I've found that typing it in is better. That's one of the, it's just, there is an import function here, but it's, like I said, it just takes a little slow reading it, formatting it. So I would just say, if you are...
Well, is there 60 or 70 of them?
You asked me, I gave you the answer.
Okay.
Trust me, okay? Not that it can't get better, and not that it doesn't work. It's just, at this point, again, if I got the statement in front of me, 60 or 70 is going to take me 15 minutes, or take a staff person, okay? So let's trudge on to next. So now we've got this current portfolio, and you saw also that anything that didn't have positions automatically defaulted up to cash. Okay, now I'm going to fill out my risk tolerance questionnaire, which is standard, okay, kind of industry standard. If I had an existing proposal for this client, I could go in here and copy from existing proposals so I have to answer these questions. But I'm just going to go quickly through. I'm not going to dwell on the what and why of the risk tolerance questionnaire because, again, they are quite generic and similar in the industry. It kind of works on a bell curve. And we're going to talk as we have time about the importance of you really sitting down and not asking the questions, but delving into the questions so that you get an idea of your client's true risk tolerance and time horizon rather than it being on the surface. So now my risk tolerance questionnaire is done. So now it's time to select a program. Okay, let's assume again I'm a rookie. I'm a novice. I don't want to think. I'm not a money manager. I don't know who these managers are. This is way too complicated. What do? I go into program and I go to digital portfolio consultant. Okay, in your kits there is a handout that talks about the digital portfolio consultant and the benefits of how it works. I'm going to show it to you now. Okay? What I have to do, I have to go back in, unfortunately, and I'm going to change this amount so that I go back to my 150,000. So it's easy enough to do that. And then I go back to my program, digital portfolio consultant, 150,000. Registration is individual. Okay. Primary owner is in there, and I click Save and Next. The digital portfolio consultant is going to ask me a series of questions to help, now that we've got the client's risk tolerance and time horizon down, is to help to kind of funnel and narrow down that selection process of funds or fund strategist. Is my client interested in a traditional asset allocation? Are they more income concerned? Are they more risk concerned? Is cost an issue? Are they looking for impact investing, like social responsibility? Okay, so in question number one, I can check as many as I want. I check those three. Is my client tax sensitive? Yeah, it's an individual account, it's taxable. Let's see what happens. And then, do I want only those portfolio solutions that are PMC approved? PMC, again, is Portfolio Management Consultants. It is the research arm that does all the due diligence on these managers, okay? And they're going to screen them. This is going to narrow down the search further to just those that are research approved. For now, so you can see it, I'm going to say no. And I'm going to click Save and Next. And you're going to see that I'm going to have a semi-manageable list. So down from roughly 900, I'm down to 15 or 20. From here, you have the ability to pick one. And for most of us, we should be, okay, out of this 15 or 20, I can say, gee, I recognize Brinker. Yeah, they're great. I recognize Russell. We've been talking about the various PMC models. Here's Morningstar, Phil Taves, Lazard, and you can pick from there if you want, or you say, gee, you know what? Let me go back and see just those that are PMC approved. I have to click Edit. Now it's going to narrow it down just a little bit further, as you can see. My question to you is, how much damage are you going to do to your client picking from this list? Anybody scared about that? You don't have to get, these are rhetorical questions, but before you answer, before you saw this, before you did this, 2 years ago, you're dealing with a managed account, you're dealing with a mutual fund. How much due diligence did you do yourself on the product that you recommended? How much of it came from a wholesaler? How much of it came from material? Okay, again, we don't have to answer. Everybody's going to be somewhere on the spectrum out there. But, needless to say, some of us have sold products without, providing a full internal exam on them. Okay? Knowing that TFS and Portfolio Management Consultants has now provided this research tool to take 891 down to 12 or whatever it is, I'm personally quite comfortable selecting them. But my advice to you is, if you're going to use them, you don't necessarily need to be a expert on it. But if I'm going to pick New Frontier and I've never heard them before, what do I have the ability to do? Learn about it. Oh, wow, look at this. New Frontier does blah, 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 blah. And here's the portfolio composition. Here's the asset allocation. Here's the holdings. Thus, the reason for unnecessary duplicate diversification. It's already quite diversified into exclusively ETFs between iShares, PowerShares, Spiders, across the board. What the weighted expense ratio is.
I'm just going to make this bigger.
Okay, sure. Okay, so you can see the weighted expense of the underlying holdings is only 22 basis points, so it's very cost effective. Portfolio statistics on return, risk, relative performance to benchmarks over time, year by year. And there's also research tools. So if you want to subscribe to alerts on it, if you want to do further research, and anytime you select one of these, all this information is going to be kind of condensed down and put into a nice Morningstar report at the end of your proposal as an add-on. Okay, so you can learn on the fly, or as now I've done, probably 50 of these, I'm going to say, gee, you know what? I really, really, in this particular case, I like the PMC Select Strategic, so I'm just going to select it because I can only select one. Not a commercial for it. You can select Brinker. You can select any of these down the line. I think you're going to do quite well. Okay? Everybody following me so far?
Can you pick more than one from this list or just one?
You heard me say just one, right?
Yes, that's what I'm asking.
So, yes, that's going to be step 3, but so just be patient. This is single strategy solution, okay? For $150,000, and I'm just going to pick on, so let's take a look at PMC. How many funds would you have sold them? How would you have diversified them? How would you have selected them? And this happens to be a portfolio that is a sub-advised fund with 8 different separately managed accounts in it. I've got all the diversification I need in there for $150,000. Okay, and you're going to find similar situations. Okay, with whatever else you choose, all going to be different. Again, that's the key to finding your wheelhouse, finding what you feel comfortable with, and moving from there. I continue on, and essentially my work is done now. All I need to do is kind of just make it around the bases. I've already hit the home run. I just don't want to trip over third base. Okay, so I go in here. Is this a government entity? No. If I wanted to dollar cost average, there's a tool in here to set me up for dollar cost averaging. Let's say I had met the minimum investment already in the underlying strategy, which is only $10,000. I could say, let's start with 50 and dollar cost average the other 100 in over on a biweekly basis over any period of time. Very flexible. Not something I would encourage overusing, but again, it's there. Key is you want to answer the government entity question. Unsupervised, again, something that I'm not going to encourage anybody to use, but let's say, you've got a, billionaire widow that says, look, I've got, 1,000 shares of XYZ that my grandfather left me and I'm not going to sell it. And I really don't want to pay a fee on it. Those 1,000 can be excluded. There's no fee and there's no management on it. It just appears on the statement. Why put it in an account, have the liability and not get paid on it? But that option exists. That's why you see me skipping over it. Finally, account setup. Is this money coming by check? Is it coming by transfer from a Pershing account or transfer from another place? Okay. Let's assume that the $150,000 is coming in 3 different tranches. A check for 50, a transfer from Pershing for 50, and a transfer from XYZ for 50. All that's going to do is help me do the right paperwork. Fees, okay? This here, you can see my total fee here, all in, is 1.31% to the client. That includes me making 1%, okay? You see, if I wanted to, under the advisor fee, it's this little pencil here allows me to edit that fee. So if I wanted to say, look, yeah, you know what, this is a huge case. I want to give them a 75 basis points instead of 100. I can change that. And I can also save the fee schedule that I can call on it later. If I wanted to do friend discount, if I wanted to do 0 advisor fee, because I want to do it for my own accounts. Okay, so you see that I have 5 different fee schedules in addition to the default. So let's say I'm going to go with this one just because. I save that, and now you're going to see the total fee to the client is 1.06%. The reason, again, is because the overall fee schedule, when you go scroll down, client fee, it is a tiered fee schedule. So it's not an absolute discount. So you're going to get, 1.25 of the first, 100,000, or in this particular case, 1.08 first 100, and then 1.03 on the excess over 100, which is why it blends out to be 1.06, of which I get 75. Everybody follow me so far? Reasonable? Who got lost?
I did.
How'd you get lost? You're trying to do it on your computer instead of watching.
Well, I'm going to try to do with it.
Okay.
All right, don't worry.
So I would advise against
Show
it.
where the pencil is, Tom, because where the pencil that you pushed, I couldn't see where you said the pencil had changed.
Because that's because my.
Okay. So there's a, I didn't see that, sorry.
Fury. Where'd you get lost, Paul?
Just, I'm over by the fees. It says, total investment 150, then it's got the client fee and the advisor fee, but I don't know how you got to where you were changing the way.
Okay, so look up here,
Oh, I got it. Pencil.
advisor fee,
I got it.
click the pencil, and again, you can make your own fee schedules, and again, the parameters will be there so that you can't go too high or too low,
Got it.
okay? So we got to move here, because we're coming up to 10 o'clock. All I need to do at this point is to click accept, save and next, and click this box to generate the paperwork. Generating the paperwork is going to give me 3 sets of documents. Investment strategy proposal, and this is what the proposal looks like. Very professional. If anybody hasn't seen it before, wants to look at it closely, it's robust. It's, again, going to be better than anything else that we threw in front of a client to sell them something before. Safe to say. Again, I'm not trying to be a wise guy, but it is what it is. And at the very end, you're going to see the investment strategy selection and the Morningstar report on it. So again, very robust presentation here. Very simply, what you're going to do, there's a whole set of disclosures down here where it says for delivery to client. I click on this one little folder icon here, and that's going to create a PDF that I can email to the client, say, Dear Bob, in connection with our meeting tonight in close, please find these very important disclosures for review. Now I've got an email that proves that I sent it to him, and he's got every disclosure, my ADV, Investnet's ADV, TFS's ADV, your ADV. If the third-party manager needs one, it's in there. It creates the paperwork for you to sign, including the statement of investment selection, which is basically the client's investment policy statement, risk tolerance, fees, pretty much all the disclosures that you need here, okay? We're working on a couple things that don't really get clearly covered here from a disclosure standpoint, and that's source of funds in certain cases and the cost of the underlying investment. But as they put together their fiduciary tools as the rule rolls out, that will be pretty much taken care of. You'll also see where that's covered later on when Pershing and John and Jeanette do their thing. So you got your proposal and your investment policy statement up here, client registration forms right underneath it, new account form, investment advisory agreement, and the ACAT form. If I didn't check transfer from Pershing, guess what wouldn't be there? The ACAT form, okay? And that's it. Now, if you'll indulge me 5 more minutes, I always go over, so I don't want to ruin my reputation.
Actually, I won the bet.
Yeah, that's good. That's even money, and unfortunately, I was betting against you on the other side, so You got sold out. I want to show you how quickly to do those other 2 or 3 steps, and then I'll hang around after the meeting if anybody wants to drill down further. Okay. Let's say I want to change something. Okay. Reset. Okay. Let's say I don't want to change anything, but now I just did the individual account for Mr. PP. I want to go and do his IRA. I can click copy, and it's going to copy the proposal, and then I can go in and edit that proposal and change individual to IRA, change amount from 150 to 200, click generate, and now 2 proposals are done. That simple. Okay. But let's say I want to change something. Reset proposal and paperwork, and now basically I've taken this from being a closed, finalized version to being open again. Okay, what I'm going to go in here and do is just to show you the non-training wheels part, because now let's say you've done a few of these with the training wheels, and you go in here to proposed investment and say, gee, you know what? Maybe I don't really need to go through this process anymore. I know what I want. So I go into mutual fund wrap and exchange traded funds, save and next, and now what it's going to do, instead of giving me the tool to narrow it down, it's going to give me all of them. I just need to go through and pick which one I want. Okay, so now you see the list goes on and on and on and on. But I know that I want BlackRock. So I can go in and I can select BlackRock and go all the way down and continue, and then just continue with the other steps of the proposal that I just did, all the basic stuff. Frank, to your question, let's say I got to a point here and said, gee, you know what? That one's only asking for a $10,000 minimum. There's another one, $25,000 minimum. Let's say I mix it up a little bit, okay? So I go into proposed investments here, and instead, what do I choose if I want more than one? Unified managed account. So I'm going to build a TFS unified managed account. There's 2 ways I can do it. Okay, one way I'm going to do it the wrong way, just so you see it here. But realize I'm going to tell you that when you're managing, you want to manage models, not clients. So if you've got 500 clients, you don't want 500 models. You want 5 models. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, I'm actually going to show you the right way. I just jumped out here into manage, and I'm going to quickly pull a model. I can create a model in here very simply as a TFS unified account, managed account model, and I'm going to call it test mod. I'm assuming they came up moderate. I don't actually remember.
Does everybody understand what he means when he's saying he's creating a model? He's going to have a model created, so next time he wants to just go back in and just click on that.
So if I knew I wanted, just by clicking on this little class here, I knew I wanted Vanguard, and I can go into manage portfolios, and it's going to give me all the Vanguards, and I'm going to take, I want this Vanguard Crisp 6040. Click on the glass again. Yes, I do. Yeah, it's like, the CRSP stands for 4 different things. Leon might know, he's a wholesaler. I want TFS buy hold plus. Look at that, right in there, and how easy it is. I want BlackRock. I think you get the idea here, guys. And I forget, I guess, yeah, I'm looking for moderate, so I'm going to go 50, 25, 25. Look at that. Boom, brought me right in the middle. You see the risk tolerance there? My target and where I am exactly. And now I've created a model that I can pick and attach to any client I want that's moderate. Okay? If I build the model within the proposal, it's going to be specific to that client. I'm going to have 500 of them to deal with. So I go back to my proposal where we were. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select an existing strategy, TFS Unified Managed Account. And unfortunately, I made a moderate model. And my existing client that I made here is moderate growth. Okay? But unfortunately, I have other models here that we can use. So I can just select this model here as if it was the one I created mistakenly and continue. And now that model is part of that portfolio. If I want to see what that model looks like, I can go back and look at it. And it happens to be similarly structured. Okay? So the key, and then I'm going to end it here because we're 7 minutes over. The point here is that we can use the digital portfolio consultant for training wheels. Tell me who I should use, narrow 900 down to a dozen. Once I get used to using that, what am I doing? I say, oh, wow, look at it. Yeah, let me write that one down. Let me write that one down. Let me write that one down. Because if I see I really like 2 instead of 1 or 3 instead of 1, I'll write the names down and I'll go and I'll just build a unified managed account model and I can attach that model there. I don't expect you to be able to do that just from sitting here today, but it's important that you realize that in less than 5 minutes, you could build a couple of models for two accounts for your client very, very simply. And if you never got away from digital portfolio consultant, that's fine because it keeps you on the straight and narrow. As you do more, you'll get a little bit smarter. It'll get a little bit simpler. But the most important takeaway is that, and if I can go here, I want to make sure I hit on a couple of important points on the way out. I want to make sure A is that you call me. Hell with it. Call me, set up a time if you have questions you want to learn. The best way to learn, Charlie just stepped out, but Charlie and I worked on a case. Paul Sachs and I are going to work on a case this afternoon. Ivan, we've done a couple of times. The best way to learn and solidify it is by hammering it home by doing it yourself, doing it live with a real client. And once you do a couple, it becomes like riding a bike. Questions? Okay, Bill?
I'm in that model, as long as I meet the minimum of that choice in the UMA. I mean, I could have 6 different pieces to the model.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. The thing to remember again is fund strategist is single strategy. If you want more than one piece, then it's a unified managed account. Other questions? I'm going to be here throughout. So if you want to catch me at breaks or at lunch, by all means, we can do that. I apologize for taking the extra 10 minutes, but I felt it was time well spent. And with that, thanks for